Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where leaders inspire leaders. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Thank you, Evan. Today's guest is Gail Mukaihata Hannemann, CEO of the Girl Scout Council of Hawaii and wife of Honolulu Mayor Mufi Hannemann. Gail is also the chairwoman of the Hawaii Alliance for Arts Education. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Gail Mukaihata Hannemann. Welcome to our show, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are the CEO of the Girl Scouts Council of Hawaii. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do with them?
Well, the Girl Scouts is obviously our focus is to help girls develop. And so there's a program side to it and there's a business side of it. And I oversee both aspects of the organization in that regards.
And why did you get involved in the Girl Scouts?
Actually, I had been sitting on the board, and they had been doing a search for an executive director at that time, and somebody approached me. One of the some part of the search committee approached me to do it, and initially I said no, and said no several times, and then eventually I thought I should take a look at it, and did, and went through the interviewing process, and then I found out that it actually was an excellent job and something that I would really want to do.
Why did you say no initially?
Because I just didn't think I had never even considered working for a nonprofit. It's actually my first nonprofit job. I had in my mind other things that I was going to do, some of the things I was going to pursue. But the one thing that I have found in life is sometimes when things come to you and interesting in different ways, that you have to stop and take a look at it. Because many times people say they don't have opportunities when in fact opportunities came and went because they weren't looking. They didn't realize it was an opportunity.
Were you a Girl Scout when you were younger?
I actually was.
So you knew a little bit about the organization.
Well, as a girl, you don't realize the organization, the business side of it, which is what my job entails. But as a girl, you just think about the fun and the things that you do. So I think I understood it in a sense that it's something that I remembered, and it was a very positive experience. And I learned some new skills in that when I was a Girl Scout. I learned how to horseback ride. I learned how to do archery. I learned how to ice skate, things of that nature, which actually I have all used those things as I got older. So,
how did you get involved with this, this business career? Because it seems like you started off in social service almost.
I started off by accident, almost, in public service. I went to Washington, D.C. for a summer, for 2 months, and I ended up spending 15 years there. So it wasn't something that I had planned, but when I got to D.C., I saw that there were a lot of things going on that I had no understanding or really didn't have any context for, but I realized that people were making important decisions that would affect my life at some level. So at some point, I felt like it was worth spending that time to get to know that. And in that process, though, because Congress really deals with just about every conceivable subject matter you can think of, from the social sector side to the business side, because you're looking at laws that affect businesses and monetary growth and et cetera, that it gave me, I thought, a really good background and sort of actually taught, sort of wakened the passion in me, I guess, for lack of a better word, of understanding how you could take something that's really interesting to you and actually make it a career. One of the things that I really learned in Washington is you meet all kinds of people there. And if you ever sat down and talked to them and you asked them what they studied in school, it would be X. And when you look at what they're doing, it was Y. It was so different. And it really taught me, or made me think about how you can really carve out your future. And when you really think about and you talk to these folks, they were all basically pursuing things that they were found interesting in their own life. And I think that helped me decide what to do.
What originally took you to Washington, D.C.?
I shouldn't really admit this, but I actually just like to travel. And every summer since I had been 14, I had always gone somewhere during the summer. And I always wanted to go to college back east. But because there's 4 girls in my family, 3 of us were going to be in college at the same time, we took the practical path of going to not traveling outside. I grew up in California, so California has some incredible, great schools. So we all chose to go to California schools. And so I thought it was my last summer, my senior, and I thought I'm gonna figure out how to go back east. So I literally walked around the campus, and I somehow found a program that could take me to back east. So I applied for the program and ended up getting a job.
What kept you there for 15 years?
It's an interesting place. It's a place where lots of decisions are made. And I said, for me, I went, when I decided to stay, it was really so that I could actually learn what makes the world tick. Basically, you can see that happening in Washington, D.C. You know, you start thinking your day's going to be this, you watch the news, and you know your life just changed because it impacts what you're doing and the things that happen in the world.
During your time at Washington, D.C., are you able to share with us maybe who was the most influential or impactful person, leader that you met and were able to talk to them and learn some important lessons that have carried with you till today?
Oh, that's a hard question. I actually worked for 7 elected officials. So actually, to me, that was the biggest benefit, was that when you work with 7 different people, they have 7 different styles and different, not only styles of leadership, but also just what they're interested in, what their constituency looks like, etc. And so that in itself taught me a lot about how to be flexible, how to focus on what you're supposed to get done, but finding the right style to work with each one of the various bosses, because they all had very different ways of doing things. So I can't say there was one person. Oh, I guess I could say actually I worked for the chairman of one committee, and I remember he started off the legislative session saying this one bill that he was working on was the most important bill of his career, and he had a long career in Congress. So of course that puts the ante up, and everyone's very focused on it. And it was a very complicated and very contentious bill that we were pushing through. We dealt with resources, and this particular one had to do with water and energy. There were 2 different bills actually. And so we got through it. We made all this big progress, and it came down to actually signing the papers. And somebody messed up on the paperwork, and so it was like the close of business, 11th hour. If they had signed, he died, that would have been, the bill would have died. So parliamentarian had called me and told me that there was this major mess up on the paperwork and that we had to work it out. He gave us about a half an hour, otherwise the bill would have died. We spent 2 years trying to get this done. So one of us had to go tell our boss. And of course, you would expect actually to be fired under those conditions. And the first and only thing he said is, what do I need to do to fix it? He said, I know nobody did this on purpose. What do I need to do? And he went and did it. We had to basically run around all over the place. And I thought afterwards that he had every right to come back and scream and yell and everything. He never did. He said what he said, and he said, I know no one did this. I know everyone did their best. And that was it. And it taught me a lot about how you treat people and how, you can make a situation and you can turn it into a terrible thing. But that in itself almost galvanized the whole staff, because they realized what he could have done and he didn't do it, and it really pushed us to move forward and to do other things. So I think I learned from him about how you treat people and with respect, and then to always look at the intent of what people are doing as opposed to a particular situation.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.